When we start processing coffee cherries, first, always float the cherries. We want to float the cherries to remove any microorganisms from the surface, select the best cherries that we're going to process, and afterwards we're going to pulp. When we remove the skin layer of the cherries, we expose the carbohydrates and the pectins of the mucilage. When we leave these beans in a clear and clean spot, they will start to ferment. In coffee, we talk about fermentation as the process that is undertaken by microorganisms that dilute these pectins, and as byproducts of this process, they produce alcohols and acids. In washed coffees, we will leave this to happen between 12 to 24 hours. In this period of time, these microorganisms such as yeast and bacteria will dilute all of the pectins and will allow us to wash off the mucilage from the coffee seed and expose completely the parchment. The process of fermentation can be taken into different layers, steps, and types that will impact the final quality of the bean. If we use vessels that have more conical shape, we will be able to maintain internal activity that is going to be higher. Fermentation will be made or will be undertaken in a more consistent way, rather than when we split the coffee in a very wide tank. When we do so, we're exposing most of these microorganisms and pectins to oxygen, and we will have more acidic flavors. It is an idea that we need to experiment to understand which fermentation process is ideal for our conditions. Fermentation is affected basically by relative humidity of the environment, the distribution of the mass, and the final pH that we achieve. In the fermentation process, we will generate heat. As we are able to monitor temperature in our processing facility, we will be able to understand the rate of fermentation. If we ferment very fast, it is often that we can result in very acidic coffee. Ideally, what we want to achieve is a slow fermentation process in which microorganisms are going to feed on these sugars and pectins and produce desired alcohols and acids. After the fermentation period is finalized, we will wash the coffee with clean water and we will take the coffee out to dry. When taking the washed coffees out to dry, we want to take them at 1 p.m. so that we take most of the sunlight of the day and we remove the outer layer of moisture from the seed, the initial moisture or the outside moisture, as fast as we can. Then slightly start to reduce the drying time until we get to 10% humidity content. When drying washed coffees, we need to be aware that too much sunlight will impact the stability of the parchment and will definitely impact the stability of the coffee seed. We want to dry wash coffees in a more stable and slowly manner than the other processing techniques, because we want to maintain the structure of the seed as intact as possible until we get to the 10% humidity content. In coffee pulping, you will find different equipment across the world, but the principle is the same. The idea is to put pressure to the bean and try to take the skin off and let the bean loose to the other end. For example, this is an horizontal drum pulper that first of all needs to be clean. All of the equipment used in processing coffee needs to be sufficiently clean so that every batch is unique. The horizontal drum pulper, basically what it's going to do is going to use this dented drum and push the bean against the chest that is in the front. The pulped beans will come out this way and the skin will come out this way. You have these pulpers, vertical drum pulpers and horizontal drum pulpers, all of which the key element for every pulper is that it needs to be properly cleaned and properly calibrated. When the pulper is properly calibrated, the skin and the bean are going to remove easily. When the equipment is not properly calibrated, the beans can be crushed or beaten by the equipment. This will not be an ideal case because you will lose all of these beans in the sorting process.